The Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show is sponsored by Accunet Mortgage, an equal housing lender, NMLS ID 255368, and Accunet Realty Advisors, which is a separate company from but still affiliated with Accunet Mortgage.
Welcome to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show, getting you inside information on buying, selling, and financing your home with expert advice from Accunet Mortgage and Realty's Brian Wickert on WTMJ.
Hey, welcome to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. I'm Brian Wickert, the owner and president of Accunet Mortgage and also the broker over at Accunet Realty Advisors. Although I got to say, we don't really do any real estate transactions.
It's true.
But I have the license. Back in the saddle today is my son and the chief millennial loan consultant, David Wickert. Welcome back, David.
Good morning, Dad.
Nice to have you back.
Good
if
to be
you
here.
have a question or a comment, you can call or text us on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line. Thank God this doesn't belong to some bank or something. It's the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line, which is 414-799-1620. Start out with a quick shout-out to Kelsey and Ryan Stray and Kelsey's dad and mom, Doug and Barb Braun, who are the new owners of Old Hickory Golf Course in Beaver Dam, right on Highway 33.
Slick.
And they are all customers of Accunet, too. Went out there on Friday, only a 50-minute drive through the beautiful, gently rolling hills of Dodge County. And had a delicious lunch. And yes, it was a little cold and rainy, but we did manage to get 9 holes in. And I can almost feel the tips of my fingers.
Wearing parkas as you went on the fairway?
I had the same coat on that I wore to Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
It was that cold. But a really nice mature course built in 1920. Terrific patio area. I highly recommend it. All
nice.
Right. Now, on to the story of the week. First-time home buyer scheduled to purchase her home at 9 a.m. this past Friday. Buyer had been pre-approved, not rock solid, but still pre-approved. Mm-hmm. And she applied with her accepted offer on Friday, the 13th of September. So count them out. That's a 4-week close.
Yeah.
Doable, but you got to be on your game. So the good news is excellent credit, the good financial blood pressure, as I call it, which means the percentage of her gross monthly income that she would devote to the housing payment, including taxes and insurance and any other payments that she has, a nice solid 33%. So she's not overspending.
Debt-to-income ratio.
Debt-to-income ratio. We call it single person. 3% down, taking advantage of the Fannie Mae's special 30-year fixed-rate loan program called Home Ready. That's the loan program that offers lower interest rates and cheaper monthly PMI for borrowers who earn less than 80% of the area median income, which in southeastern Wisconsin, do you have this number memorized?
66 and change?
$65,840.
Close.
Now remember, that maximum was, or would have been, $82,600. But in the summer, one of the things that Fannie Mae already did kind of on its own, or maybe with a little shove in the back from their regulator, is they squashed that from $82,600 down to $65,840.
Shrinking the footprint.
Shrinking the footprint. Now, the only not completely perfect thing about this loan profile is that our borrower had returned to work in the medical field in a technical capacity a year and a half ago. Immediately prior to that, she was in the food and beverage industry for several years. So upon returning to the medical field 18 months ago, she worked for a year through a medical temporary staffing agency. Okay. And she was placed at some facility. And then after that year, she got a full-time job there.
She became a direct employee.
And then, just about the same time she must have been writing her offer on the house, she took a new job at a hospital.
Oh.
Okay, so
same field?
Same field, right. But generally now, so to the naked eye, it looks like she's had 3 jobs in 18 months. What is the concern that the mortgage lending industry would have? What's that called?
Stability.
Yeah, income or job stability. But it all makes sense. And
it followed a good story.
Yeah, and we documented that. We got a good explanation that it's really more like 2 jobs, right?
Yeah,
first 2 jobs I had were all at the same place in actuality. All right, so now, per the offer to purchase contract, the loan approval letter was due this last Thursday, the day before closing, Friday. Well, on Wednesday, 2 days before the closing, we're working on some final loan approval conditions. Like, hey, why does the only pay stub we have from your new job only show orientation hours? Could you...
Which must be different than regular pay.
Well, right. So the request, one of our team members then calls on Wednesday to find out, do you have like another pay stub, because she gets paid weekly, that would show us, that your regular hours are working? And she goes, oh, I quit my job yesterday on Tuesday.
Is that a problem?
Yeah. But she honestly didn't think it was a problem, because she's going back to her immediate previous employer, yeah.
In the same field.
Yeah, in the same field, and I'm making the same amount of money.
Yeah, it'll all be fine, I swear, I promise.
All right, so we tell people, and I'm telling everybody right now within the sound of my voice, don't change jobs during the loan approval process.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, why not wait till the week after, For some reason, she decided it was so painful, really didn't like the new job, that she was going to do it 3 days before closing. And for goodness sakes, if you do change, you must tell your lender, because at the closing table, when you sign that final loan application, and then we also have an extra form called an attestation, you are saying, this is where I really work and this is how much I make. And if you aren't telling the truth, what is that
punishable
called?
up to $1 million or 30 years
It's a
in
felony.
prison.
Mortgage fraud is a felony.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to tell you what happened next when we come back. You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on AM 620 WTMJ.
Home buying advice from the guys who know it best. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on WTMJ.
All right, so we're telling a story about somebody who changed jobs on the last Tuesday, before they were supposed to close on a purchase of the first home on Friday. And so our team jumps into action on Wednesday. This is when we find out 2 days before closing.
A full-on fire drill.
Yes, this is a full-on fire. Get the fire hats on.
Yeah.
And we realize, hey, we got to get a new written verification of employment from her new / immediately previous employer. Uh-huh. And so we get that cooking, and also get a nice letter of what just happened. So here we draft a letter for him, get it over to her. She signs it. We get this all put back into the underwriting queue late in the afternoon on Wednesday. Now, for 20 years, David knows this, I have steadfastly resisted the temptation for Accunet to actually underwrite and approve loans with its own authority. One of the reasons why we're here today, in business after 20 years, because a lot of people went out of business because they made decisions they thought were right, and then Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came back later and said, you didn't make a good decision. You didn't really follow our loan book, our guidelines. You buy all these back. So I don't do that. I rely on the Fannie Mae approved loan servicer, who will be eventually collecting the payments on the loan, to make that judgment, especially on a 3% down loan with possibly 4 job changes in the last 18 months. It's like, I'm not going to stick my neck out on that one. Now, luckily, the companies that we do business with that service loans really, really like us. So, we send in this information electronically.
Turn it around pretty quick.
Could you pretty please turn this around? But, we're not like the only lender on the planet that does business with them, and they got a lot of loans on the queue. On Thursday, which is the day the loan approval is actually due, the day before closing, we're communicating with our client, the buyer, and then the buyer's agent. Yep. Here's our game plan. And so our diagnosis is, the story does make sense. We have it well documented. This loan, we believe, has a very high probability of actually being approved. We just don't know exactly when. Yeah. And Brian doesn't want to stick his neck out. So we probably aren't going to be able to give you the actual loan commitment letter on the day it's due, Thursday.
Before closing on Friday.
Which was, by the way, scheduled, of course, for 9 a.m. on Friday for the closing. So one thing, we think this is going to close, but we don't know when we're going to get our revised approval back. Let's push the closing back to 4 p.m. on Friday, hoping that we'll still be able to close on the scheduled day.
And just a little bit more elbow room.
Yeah, a little more elbow room, but yet we don't know if we're going to still be able to.
Yeah.
So this gets communicated then by the buyer's agent to the listing agent later in the day on Thursday. Well, then at about 6:19 a.m. on Friday, I'm up. I'm somehow logged in, working on my radio ads for the week, and I see this email come across from the buyer's agency. Could someone from Accunet please call the listing agent to calm her down? Okay. I'm like, sure, I'll do that. Let's get on a 3-way call.
Which this is a hard selling point when we're talking to folks on the phone.
Yeah.
But the ability to get the president of the mortgage company on the horn to be the chief problem solver. It's like the kind of thing. It's like life insurance. Like you don't really want it because you're dead,
Right.
But it's better to have it.
Yeah, you know what? If your loan turns into a dumpster fire,
Yeah,
sir,
you've got the chief dumpster firefighter.
chief firefighting officer. Yeah.
But it's a true statement. It's like, oh yeah, I can get the president on the horn
yeah.
to talk to the listing agent of the house we're trying to buy.
Exactly.
You can't. Any bank or credit union, that doesn't exist.
That probably doesn't. You're sure not going to get Jamie Dimon from Chase on the phone.
That's true.
All right, so before I call, a little after 7 a.m., I see a message from our Chief of Operations, Jason Hansen, saying, hey, we got the updated approval overnight. Ooh, the only bad news is the underwriter, just doing her job, says, you know what, now I would really like to see a written verification from that temp agency from 18 months ago where she originally came back to work. Didn't need that originally. But now that we have this switcheroo here real close to closing, the stability issue
Comes back up.
Yeah, comes back up. It's like I got to make sure she doesn't have any gaps in employment to make myself feel good.
Okay.
So now it's Friday morning, and we are scrambling to get the verification from the 2 ago employer.
Yeah.
And I won't give you the answer yet. In the meantime, at 8:15, I call the listing agent with the buyer's agent and explain the whole thing like I just did here. And the listing agent says, well, why didn't you call me on Wednesday?
Because you're not my client.
Well, that's exactly what I said. Because you're not my client. I didn't have permission to give you this information. Plus, we were kind of working on solving the problem and putting the game plan together. I usually like to call people with problems and solutions at the same time.
Wow.
But to her point, it would have been nicer if we would have called her maybe earlier in the day on Thursday.
No, that's
in the end, it didn't
hindsight
matter.
is 2020.
In the end, the seller is an old elderly person, doesn't need to buy a home, so it's not an emergency anyway. All right, but now finally, the end of the story is we closed at 4:00 on Friday on the day originally scheduled. Calm, cool, and collected.
Good job by you.
There you go. So we are good firefighters and fixers, and there you have it. All right, when we come back, let's talk about what interest rates are doing.
Okay.
All right, you are listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on AM 620 WTMJ.
Getting you into the home of your dreams. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on WTMJ.
Hey, quickly before we go on to what's happening with interest rates, David, you had a comment about the financing contingency deadline the day before the actual purchase.
Well, so the financing was due on Thursday and you're closing on Friday.
Yeah.
It is just incredibly, Accunet takes very seriously financing deadlines because we want to help buyers stay in contract.
That's right. Because if you don't give that letter on the day it's due, on or before the day it's due, the seller gains the right to
spike the football.
Yeah, cancel
the deal. It's just funny how there's contract life and then there's real life. And in contract life, yes, the seller has the right to cancel the transaction and begin again with a new buyer. But then over here on the other side of the table in real life, a seller is not going to choose unless there is some grossly material reason why. They're not going to choose to start over. So I just, there is heartburn in wanting to deliver financing on time, but at the same time, I think agents aren't afraid to talk turkey with a listing agent to be like, really? Like, hey, sorry, we just need a little bit more time, but we have every intention of still closing tomorrow. And most people are reasonable. Like, this is the Midwest. Well, people are trying to get it done.
To that point, another call that I made this week on a duplex purchase for a veteran, we got a very unusual situation where we're switching VA investors.
Okay.
For odd reasons.
Okay.
And so, again, it's like, oh, you know what? We're really sorry about this, but we had to do a switcheroo, and so we can't deliver your commitment on time. So I get on the phone with the veteran buyer, cool guy, explain all the reasons why this is happening. He's cool with it. I said, let's get your agent, which, by the way, he wasn't really a buyer's agent. He was a sub-agent of the seller. And the homeowner, our borrower, did not realize that, had no idea.
Okay.
But the guy was really cool. He's like, there's no problem. We are not going to have a problem with this. You know, well, you're going to get an amendment to extend the closing or the financing commitment deadline? Nah, seller's going to be cool. So to your point, in real life, he's like, not a problem.
Yeah.
So there's contract life and there's real life.
I also, in drafting offers and contingencies, I do see a lot of times that tight window between when financing is due and when the closing date is, which is smart because, hey,
if you lose your job,
because
instead of quitting your job if you got fired,
right, or quitting your job and going back to your old employer, for example,
right,
like our
right. But if you have
previous
a
story.
long gap of like a month,
Well, it's just dangerous.
Right, because if you get hit, if you lose your job, I'm not going to lend you the money. And by the way,
how's about what if you get injured at work and sorry, no, I still have my job, but
I'm now on
leave.
disability pay, which is 60% of my regular, and I don't qualify anymore. Yeah. So it's people. Those things don't happen very often in real life, but that is a risk because once you give your commitment letter, you can no longer use the lack of financing as an excuse to get out of the deal.
Correct.
So
anyway.
All right.
So interest rates.
Yeah.
Let me.
We don't have time.
Oh,
we don't have
okay.
time for interest rates.
Okay.
I was going to say something else about the contingency deadlines. Just to recap, people usually focus on what date do I have to close, but we as lenders are always focused on the two other things. The appraisal contingency date.
Yeah.
By what date does that? And we haven't had any problems with that, much to my delight. Hitting appraisal deadlines, unless there's a big delay on home inspection, because that's the first contingency that comes up is, hey, I'm going to buy your house as long as the inspection comes in okay. Well, if that process then drags out and out and out for a week or two beyond, don't forget to amend your appraisal and financing contingency dates, especially the appraisal, right? Because if we're waiting
until we clear the inspection issue.
That's a problem. So it's appraisal, and then the last one is typically financing contingency date before the closing.
Don't break the bank to get into a house. Back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on WTMJ.
All right. So let's talk interest rates. They've been good all year. If we roll back the clock to December of 2018, all the big economists at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the Mortgage Bankers Association were saying, you know what? In the fall of 2019, we predict the 30-year fixed rate is going to be at about 5%. All right. Didn't happen. And a lot of that was because of the trade war between China and the United States. So it's not the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is kind of reacting to
the health of the economy being impacted by the trade war.
Yes. So the proximate cause is the trade war, because that's just a big drag, right? You're increasing the price of goods on things going both ways.
Yes.
And it all started in 2018. But anyway, so we keep this escalation, right? And that's what's like, oh my God, all these people paying these tariffs, driving them. That's going to diminish economic activity around the globe.
Well, and including the United States, where consumer expenditure drives the economy.
That's right. So that's why rates are down this year. And then in particular, in August, the Trump administration said, we're going to turn up the dial and slap even more tariffs on this basket of $250 billion of Chinese goods. We're going to take the tariff from 25% to 30%. In other words, we're increasing the cost of things by $12.5 billion annually on this stuff. The rate on the 10-year Treasury bond promptly slipped in August, all the way down to 1.54%.
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't look it up. I just have that memorized.
Okay.
Then the implementation date for those tariffs was supposed to be October 5th.
Yeah.
On September 11th, the Trump administration says, you know what? We're going to push that implementation date from the 1st to the 15th. You know why? Because you're celebrating 70 years of communism over there in China, and we don't want to rain on your literal parade. And then at the same time, China says, you know what? We're going to reduce some tariffs. I think it was on pork and soybeans. And so now all of a sudden then, it's like, well, maybe the trade thing's getting better.
Thawing in the
and the rate on the 10-year Treasury, just to use that as an easy to understand bellwether, jumps from 1.55 up to 1.9. Okay, then the week of October 7th,
nauseating swings.
It nauseating swings. Then it calms down to about 1.75 as we go through the rest of September. Then the week of October 7th, looks like the trade deal's not going to happen. Oof. 10-year Treasury yield plummets back down to
$1.50.
Was it all the way down to $1.50 again? Okay. And now, this last Friday, otherwise known as the day before yesterday, Well, now we think we've got some sort of
The
trade
first
deal.
phase.
The first phase. What's the first phase, Dave?
Well, so they're not going. So the U.S. officials are not going to increase the tariffs. It was going to be 30. They're just going to keep it at 25%.
Okay.
On $250 billion of Chinese goods.
Okay.
And also, China pinky swears that they're going to buy $40 to $50 billion of American agricultural goods.
Oh.
But nothing's in writing. China hasn't even publicly acknowledged that that's part of their side of the deal.
Okay.
But we promise.
That caused the stock market to leap up.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
a happy
Excitedly.
child.
Yeah.
Right. Seeing Santa Claus. Woohoo!
Yeah.
And so stock prices went way up, and that made interest rates go up too. Did you happen to look
I
at
have
the 10-year Treasury ended?
175.
Once back to where we were at the end of September.
Give or take.
All right, so what did that do for our
173.
mortgage rates, David?
So at the close of business on Friday, Accunet could offer a 30-year fixed at 3.875%. That would be with just $900 in cost. The
What?
APRs
Wait. What? $900?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, wow.
For the construction materials of your mortgage,
Which are the
appraisal, title, credit, and closing person who helps.
No document preparation,
Nope.
no $995 loan processing.
Yep, no
fee?
points.
No points.
Nothing.
Okay.
The APR is 3.9. And if you were thinking about maybe trying to get after your mortgage a little bit more, 15-year fixed at 3.5% with just $800 in cost. APR is 3.5.
Okay.
That's on a $200,000 loan with 25% equity and all the other right stuff.
All right, so
That is lower than this time last year.
that's right. Yeah, by about a full percentage point.
Correct.
So not as good as it was the week of the 7th. But now you're faced with a decision. Do you wait for another dip, or do you take the bird in the hand? The radio ad that I'm starting to run today says, don't be greedy. Click on the blue button. Let us do the numbers for you. Because if you can move your rate down, what did I say, from 4.5, I think it was, down to 3.75 on a $200,000 balance, that saves you about $1,000 a year, a little over $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
If you have a $250,000 loan balance, dropping your rate by 0.75 of a point on a 30-year fixed typically saves you about $1,300.
I will take free money.
Can
over
you
here.
find that in your couch cushion?
No.
What about the jeans you were wearing last week? And
Nope.
yep, I got $1,000 right in there. What are you, a drug dealer? No. So why not let us figure out if there is an easy layup for you?
Yeah.
And what we've been doing is trying to really hold down those closing costs so that if they do dip next year, if a recession really does happen, you haven't spent, $3,000 by going to the guys with the rocket to do your refinance, because that is then sunk money you will never get back. All right. When we come back, let's talk about what happens when you say this during the application. Oh, I am a party to a lawsuit. We'll cover that when we get back. You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on AM 620 WTMJ.
Helping you find a place to call home. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on WTMJ.
We have got the best get back music. I love it. All right, so we are talking about what happens when you answer this question. And every lender should be asking every borrower the question. There's 10 questions on the third page of the loan application. One of them is, are you a party to a lawsuit? And 99 out of 100 people, I'm going to say 975 out of 1,000 people. No, 998 out of 1,000 people say no. They're not a party to a lawsuit because that's just not very common. Well, I had a purchase transaction recently where the woman who is selling her home and buying a condo for her primary residence said, yes, she is. And so then what a mortgage lender is obligated to do is to get documentation on that lawsuit to find out if it's going to impair the borrower's ability to repay the new loan. And so it turns out that the lawsuit relates to the sale of a property, and that the plaintiff, which is not our borrower is the defendant, the person being sued. The plaintiff is asking for $400,000. So you look at that and you think, okay, is that going to hurt our borrower's ability to repay? Well, first thing I had to do is get a copy of the lawsuit, so I call her attorney. And this is the funniest thing that happened to me all last week. when I asked her, I said, I got to tell you, Attorney Smith, let's say her name was, this doesn't happen very often that we have somebody involved in a lawsuit. And so she said to me, well, gee, that's funny. Everybody I talk to is involved in a lawsuit. It's all about your perspective, ladies and gentlemen. And so what we did is we documented exactly what the lawsuit was about, and then we documented sufficient assets, and I want to say way more than enough assets to prove that our borrower could shoulder this loss if she did actually lose. I don't think she is going to lose. Oh, and I have a letter from the attorney saying she's not going to lose, but that's not a guarantee. You never know, and so we went the route of proving that she had more than sufficient assets to make the purchase of her condominium and lose the lawsuit. And so we should be just fine on that. We're going to take a little bit of a premature break here and see if we can improve the quality of our connection. You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on AM 620 WTMJ.
Getting you through the home buying process. Welcome back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on WTMJ.
And we're back in living color and excellent quality. All right, so let's talk a little bit, give you an update on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So I've been preaching the sermon here on Sundays that, hey, look out, everybody. I think more changes are coming with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And you remember we mentioned at the top of the show and had done so in previous shows how they have reduced the maximum allowable income that a person can earn and still qualify for their lower-priced home ready and home possible programs, which are 30-year fixed-rate loans that have better pricing and cheaper mortgage insurance. If you earn now less than $65,800 in the Milwaukee area,
in most census tracts.
In most census tracts. You know what? I looked up what it is in Green Bay because I know my brother and nephew Steve typically listen. Yeah. It's not that much different. $65,040.
Racine and Kenosha are a little bit less as well.
Oh, they are? Okay. So they're shrinking their footprint there. And remember this, then on September 5th, the United States Treasury put out a detailed 53-page report that I read cover to cover, proposing changes to America's home financing system. They said, Congress, we think you should do these things. Fat chance that ain't going to happen. And then they went on to say, hey, and if Congress doesn't act, then, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's regulator, called the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, you guys should consider doing the following on your own. You should consider hammering out a deal with us over here at Treasury and stop giving all your profits to the Treasury like you have been the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. Instead, why don't you keep all your profits? Which is about how much a year, Dave? 10 billion?
Yeah.
10, 12 billion at one. And it's like they're different sizes.
It's going to be more this year.
Right. Keep those profits and build up your capital cushion so that we can one day
unwind you.
Kick you out of the ever-loving arms of being in the conservatorship of the federal government.
Yeah.
And make you stand on your own. Gosh, that didn't take very long because remember
we advise you. We suggest you should, and lo and behold,
they did. And that happened in September?
Yeah.
Did it? Yeah. A couple of weeks ago. All right, what were their other suggestions? Well, they said, we think you should reevaluate why are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac facilitating cash out refinances. Why are you doing that? By the way, we're doing a lot of those right now, right? Mm-hmm. Helping people consolidate their home equity lines of credit or credit card debt with their first mortgage. That's considered a cash out refinance.
Yeah.
Pulling money out to remodel. Hey, would you rather borrow on your home equity line at 5 1/4? Is that
Correct.
the prime rate, or is it down to 5?
5 1/4.
5 1/4. Or would you like to do that on a 3.5% 15-year? So they said, why don't you look at stopping helping people pulling cash out? Another thing they said, Treasury is telling this to the regulator, why don't you reevaluate why you're helping people buy vacation homes? What? And what about those investment properties?
And it's not that financing is going to go away for those purchases. It's just, why are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac the backstop?
Right,
which are now those available,
which are now federally supported. Why are we using taxpayer, money, putting taxpayers at risk, helping, rich people. Theoretically, if you're going to buy a vacation home,
You can swing it.
you're, maybe you're not a 1%er, but you're probably a
3%er?
10%er, top 10% of income. Why are we doing that? So, by the way, I've been telling people that. Some people have been listening to the show. They're like, I think we're going to accelerate our Florida second home purchase.
Yeah,
and I'm like, good idea.
Good idea.
Because it doesn't take long. How long was it between when Fannie said we're going to cut the income limit and when it happened? 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like they're going to give you a year lead up on, we ain't doing vacation homes anymore. I'm going to say it's going to be, 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Prime rate's 5 right now.
Oh, prime. I thought it was 5.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing that they said, hey, evaluate the overlap between Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA on low down payment loans. So here's what I think is going to happen there. FHA loan limit in southeastern Wisconsin is $327,750 for single family homes. Fannie Mae or FHA, you can put 3.5% down. That means at the minimum down payment, you can buy a home up to a value of $339,500 and get FHA financing with 3.5% down.
Slick.
No income restrictions on FHA.
Right.
But it is a little more expensive, and the mortgage insurance, if you put less than 10% down, does last for the entire life of the loan.
Which the odds of you holding on to the same loan for 30 years is
Slim
negative
enough.
5%.
Okay.
But
So now, though, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac currently allows you to put as little as 3% down,
Yep.
as long as?
One of you is a first-time home buyer, which means you have not owned a home in the last 3 years.
That's right. And so because their maximum loan amount is $484,350, that means effectively, if you are a first-time home buyer, one of you, you can buy a home up to $499,200 with just 3% down. Whew. So I predict that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are going to come out sooner rather than later and say, you know what, that 3% down thing that we're doing, we're just going to restrict that to that home ready and home possible, the income limited programs that we do.
Well, and as you noted, they don't need permission from anybody to do that.
There is one guy named Mark Calabria,
Yeah.
who is the, what do they call him?
Commissioner?
Czar?
Something.
The head man at the FHFA can just wake up tomorrow morning and say, memo to self and everybody else in the world, now going to, and now the question is,
Director.
okay. I think they're going to go to 5%,
Probably.
but who knows when? Maybe they'll go to 10%, but I think that they're going to back off to 5% and go with 3% if you make $65,840 or less.
And just to get a little bit more wonky, let people borrow less as a percentage of their income as well.
Well, that is going to happen. That was announced in the September
Treasury
thing. That is a done deal. All right. So right now, and David and I are just doing our annual continuing education. So back in the Dodd-Frank legislation that said we're going to make mortgages safe again in America, they said, you know what the maximum debt to income ratio is that will allow somebody to have and still call it a safe, qualified mortgage?
Yeah.
It's 43%. So if you make $10,000 a month, just to make the math easy, that means that the maximum you can have on your car loans and leases, your student loans, your credit cards, and your mortgage, including principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, is $4,300.
Yeah.
Well, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, ever since that law was passed, they've got an exemption.
Yep.
And they can actually go to 50%. But that exemption, called the
QM patch,
is definitely going away in 2021, because that's when it's set to expire.
Yeah.
Because I think it was 10 years. They had the exemption for 10 years. I think Dodd-Frank was passed in 2011. So in 2021, that is going away, and they're going back down to 43%. So that will also, make loans safer.
Yeah.
All right. So there's
lots of moving parts in a mortgage business these days.
So, I think what we're saying, there's no time like the present, because as human beings, we always wake up and think, you know what, I bet tomorrow's going to be a lot like today.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much in the mortgage world. So if you're thinking about buying a second home, taking cash out, if you're thinking about making a minimal down payment, sooner is better than later. There's still homes for sale, and we would love to give you a rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval to help get you in the winner's circle. That's all the time we have for today. All you got to do to get started with a no Social Security number required precision refi checkup or that rock-solid pre-approval, just click on that blue button at accunet.com. You've been listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on AM 620 WTMJ.